Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Rebecca Bowling, and I am the director of the Drescher Center for the Humanities, and I'd like to welcome you today to the annual Daphne Harrison Lecture, named after the first director of our Humanities Center and the Humanities Scholars Program. Dr. Harrison is Professor Emerita of Africana Studies. She came to UMBC in 1972 as an Associate Professor of Africana Studies and became its longtime chair. She is the author of the book Black Pearls, Blues Queens of the 1920s, a study of 4 female blues singers, a wonderful book. Dr. Harrison is with us today, as is her husband, and I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming them. They're right over there. You want to stand? Before I introduce today's speaker, let me remind you of next week's Humanities Forum, the Lippitz Lecture by Dr. James Grubb of the History Department on the topic, The Historian, Citizen of the World, and an Archive Mouse. Now I'd like to introduce today's Humanities Forum speaker, Dr. Richard A. Long. Richard A. Long is the Atticus Haygood Professor of Interdisciplinary Studies, Emeritus at Emory Universities. He was born in Philadelphia and eventually attended high school in South Carolina. I mention the South Carolina because I detect a slight Southern lilt in his voice. Dr. Long went on to attend Temple University, the University of Pennsylvania, Oxford University, and the Universities of Paris and Poitiers, where he received his doctorate in linguistics. His teaching career began as a graduate assistant at Temple. Subsequently, he taught at West Virginia State College and spent a decade and a half teaching English and speech here in Baltimore at Morgan State College, now University. From 1966 to 1968, he was a professor of English and French at the Hampton Institute, of course now Hampton University, where he was also director of the College Museum. He became a professor of English at Atlanta University in 1968 and founded the African American Studies program there. He began an association with Emory University in 1973 as adjunct professor, becoming the Atticus Haygood Professor in 1987. From 1971 to 1973, Dr. Long was a visiting lecturer at Harvard University, and he has acted as a consultant for both the National Endowment for the Humanities as well as the National Endowment for the Arts. His writings include Black Americana, 1985, The Black Tradition in American Dance, 1989, Black Writers and the American Civil War, also 1989, African Americans, A Portrait, 1993, Grown Deep, Essays on the Harlem Renaissance, 1998, One More Time, Harlem Renaissance History and Historicism. He has edited Negritude, Essays and Studies, and African American Writing, Prose and Poetry. I could go on and on with this list, but then we'd never get a chance to hear from him. He was the founder of the Triennial Symposium on African Art and of the New World Festival of the African Diaspora. He has served on the board of directors of the Smithsonian Museum of African Art. He is a lifetime member of the board of directors of the High Museum of Art in Atlanta and has served on the board of the Society of Dance History Scholars and is now an honorary fellow of that organization. He continues to serve on the National Planning Committee of the Zora Neale Hurston Festival. Today, he will be talking to us about Harlem Renaissance personages and Haiti. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Richard A. Long.
Well, thank you very much. And I just see coming in one of my colleagues who goes back to my career at Morgan, Dr. Sheffy. Greetings. What we'll be talking about will be the Harlem Renaissance, or personages of the Harlem Renaissance and Haiti. This has been inspired in large part because Haiti has gotten so much attention as a result of the earthquake a year ago. And many people don't realize that there's been this long connection and awareness of Haiti among African Americans, much stronger in earlier periods than recently. The anthology entitled The New Negro, edited by Alain Locke, has been recognized since its appearance, and it was published in December 1925, as the classic compendium of the Harlem Renaissance. It includes or bears references to most of the personalities associated with the Harlem Renaissance and presents most of the topics embraced as concepts related to the movement. Our discussion of the relationship of personages of the Harlem Renaissance and Haiti will embrace 6 figures, including the editor, who appear in The New Negro. And I will add to that 2 younger figures who had a distinct relationship to the editor. The personages from The New Negro whom I will discuss are William E. Burghardt Du Bois, James Weldon Johnson, Langston Hughes, John Mathis, Zora Neale Hurston, and Locke. The younger figures are Catherine Dunham and Lois Mailou Jones. Before the American Civil War, that portion of the African American population who had awareness of the wider world, and this includes many who were in fact enslaved, was aware of the freedom which blacks of Haiti had gained and of the existence of Haiti as an independent government. The name of the great Haitian liberator, Toussaint Louverture, was the subject of praise and veneration. After the outbreak of the Civil War, the United States Congress was able to recognize the Republic of Haiti and to establish diplomatic relationship. The early diplomats were all African American, a tradition which ended in the 1890s following the term there of Frederick Douglass. In 1915, a United States military occupation of Haiti was launched, bringing dramatically to the consciousness of African Americans a new aspect of racism. This became a major issue for the NAACP, which had been founded 5 years before in 1910. The major personages of the NAACP at the moment of the American occupation were W.B. Du Bois and James Weldon Johnson. The American occupation lasted until 1934. The most eminent African American personage of 1925, included in The New Negro, was Du Bois. His essay, The Negro Mind Reaches Out, is the final and most lengthy work in the compendium. He begins by saying, "Once upon a time, in my younger years, and in the dawn of the century, I wrote, quote, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line, end quote. Today, in the last days of the century's first quarter, let us examine the matter again." And in the conclusion, 25 pages later, he says, "And thus again, in 1924, as in 1899, I seem to see the problem of the 20th century as the problem of the color line." In the essay, there is no direct mention of Haiti, but the basis of discussion is the activity of Du Bois in the Pan-African or political diasporic movement. Since his book, The Souls of Black Folks, had appeared in 1903, Du Bois had been recognized as one of the major spokesmen of African descent. His editing of The Crisis, the NAACP periodical which he founded in 1910, kept him in constant contact with issues affecting Haiti and the entire African diaspora. A personal connection should also be noted. His father, Alfred du Bois, or Alfred Dubois, had been born in Haiti, a fact which certainly remained in his consciousness. Du Bois visited Haiti only once and rather late in his life. I can quote from a letter that he sent from Haiti to an associate. This was in Port-au-Prince, the 12th of September, 1944. My dear Mr. Spingarn, I finally got to Haiti and have been very pleasantly received. I gave one lecture in English and I'm going to give two in French this week. I have met and talked with Bellegarde, a very famous Haitian scholar, Price Mars, another Haitian scholar, and of course, President Lescaut. James Weldon Johnson is present in the New Negro with two very important items, his poem, The Creation, and his essay, Harlem. Johnson was a well-known author of the lyrics Lift Every Voice and Sing, the music to which was written by his brother. In March 1920, Johnson was sent to Haiti in his role as field secretary of the NAACP to observe and report on the American occupation. During his stay, he met many of the leading cultural and political personalities in Haiti, with whom he maintained contact during the rest of his life. His findings on the occupation were published in the magazine The Nation in a four-part article, and the sections are entitled 1, The American Occupation, 2, What the United States Has Accomplished, 3, The Government of, by, and for the National City Bank, and that's another whole story with the relationship of the City Bank to the occupation, and 4th, the Haitian people. This report remains one of the most eloquent denunciations of the American occupation, and we will quote only an excerpt of the concluding sentence, in which Johnson says, "No amount of slander will longer serve to obscure to the conscience of America the eternal shame of this last 5 years in Haiti." And then he quotes a Latin expression which translated is, "Let justice be done though the heavens fall." In November 1920, Johnson became the secretary of the NAACP, a post which he retained for 10 years. Haiti remained in his consciousness throughout his life until his passing in 1938. Alain Leroy Locke, the editor of the New Negro, had been for over a decade a professor of philosophy at Howard University, to which he had gone after his study at Harvard and as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. As a mentor to aspiring writers, musicians, and visual artists, he had become well known in New York by 1924, when he was asked to edit for the magazine Survey Graphic, a special edition devoted to Harlem. The impact and popularity of that edition led immediately to the proposal for the production of the New Negro, the book, which of course derives from that issue. In the foreword to the New Negro, Locke says, "This volume aims to document the New Negro culturally and socially, to register the transformations of the inner and outer life of the Negro in America." After referring to the Harlem perspective of the issue of Survey Graphic, he adds, "Enlarging this stage, we are now presenting the New Negro in a national and even international scope." This statement indicates that the perspective of the New Negro is diasporic and takes cognizance of communities in the Caribbean, such as Haiti and beyond. In addition to the foreword, Locke, of course, wrote many, many other sections of the book. Finally, he coordinates in the book an expansive bibliography with sections by Arthur Schomburg and Arthur Fawcett, but with the bulk of the work by Locke himself. Locke did not visit Haiti personally until 1943, shortly after the opening of the Institute, of Haitian American Institute there. There he delivered several lectures in French under the title Le rôle du nègre dans la culture de l'Amérique, or the role of the Negro in American culture. These were published in a book in Haiti. It's never been translated into English, incidentally. One of the short stories published in the New Negro is entitled Fog, and it was by John Frederick Mathis. It had won first prize in the 1925 Opportunity Contest. The story is set in West Virginia, where Mathis had been a member of the West Virginia State College faculty since 1922. He had already served 12 years before that as a Romance language professor at the Florida A&M College. He was very active in relation to Haiti in the 1920s. In 1928, he journeyed to Haiti with his colleague, Clarence Cameron White, distinguished violinist and composer, to explore the prospect of doing an opera based in Haiti. As a result of their 6-week stay in Haiti, they composed an opera entitled Wanga, dealing with the life of the Haitian ruler Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Though this was finished in 1932, there was not a real production of it until 1940. There was another production in 1950 in Philadelphia by the company called the Dramu Negro Opera Company, and there have been a few productions of it since. In November 1929, a poem by Mathis was published in The Crisis, and the poem is entitled In Haiti is Riot of Color, and I'll read the poem. In Haiti is riot of color, the sea with its salt tang, the land, the sea, and the palm trees dancing a wild meringue. The mountaintops are royal purple, the flamboyant flowering red, the houses, the walks, and the garments are white, like shrouds for the dead. The moon is more than of silver, the sun has dazzling glow. The mangoes peep over bananas, painting a marvelous show. The oranges are matching the cane stalks, the coffee plantations are glad, the hills are happy in splendor, only the people are sad. Mathis actually returned to Haiti for a year in 1945-46, where he directed the program of the Haitian American Institute, replacing that year Mercer Cook. Langston Hughes is represented in the New Negro by poems in 2 sections. In one section, there are 9 short poems of his, and another 2. In his second autobiography, I Wonder as I Wander, Langston Hughes recounts his experience in Haiti. In April 1931, already a well-known literary personage, having published several volumes of poems and a novel, he left Cuba, where he had spent some time, to go to Haiti, sailing from Santiago in Cuba to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. His immediate reaction was negative, since his identification on arrival was checked by United States Marines representing the immigration authority. He stayed briefly in the capital, Port-au-Prince, avoiding using letters of recommendation that he had been given, and took off for the town in the north, Cap-Haïtien, normally a trip of 12 hours by the standard methods then. When his transport was interrupted when he reached the town of St. Mark because of a bridge which had been knocked down, he remained there for 3 weeks. So it took him, instead of a number of hours, 3 weeks before he finally got to up to Cap-Haïtien. However, he enjoyed himself. He spent several weeks there and visited, of course, the famous citadel and the ruins of the palace of Sans-Souci. In July, he returned to Port-au-Prince to embark for Cuba. Just before leaving, he paid a visit to the young poet and activist Jacques Roumain. who was honored to meet Langston, whose fame had, as I said, had already reached Haiti. Shortly after Langston had gotten on the boat that he took to go back, he was surprised and embarrassed by the visit of an elegant group of Haitian intellectuals led by Jacques Roumain, who had come to honor him. At a later point, Jacques Roumain wrote and published a poem entitled Langston Hughes. In 1940, the young Haitian scholar René Piquillon wrote the first book devoted to Langston, and that was entitled Langston Hughes, Le Chant Nouveau, or a New Song. Shortly after his return to the United States in 1931, Langston went to spend some time with his friend Arnaud Bolton, then working in Alabama. Out of that visit came the collaboration on a children's book based on Langston's positive impressions of the Haitian peasantry. The book is entitled Popo and Fifina. It was published in 1932. It remained in print for the next 20 years and was translated into several languages. It was again put in print in 1993 and is still in print. Langston remained aware of Jacques Roumain, whom he encountered in Haiti, in Paris, whom he saw him in Paris in 1937. Subsequently, Langston had occasion to translate poems by Roumain in an anthology which he co-edited with Arnaud Bolton. And in 1947, in collaboration with Mercer Cook, Langston translated the novel by Roumain, the novel entitled Gouverneur de la Rosée, or Masters of the Dew. And this Haitian novel, of course, is regarded as the leading novel written by a Haitian. Zora Neale Hurston is represented in The New Negro by the short story Spunk, which had received the second prize in the 1925 Opportunity Contest. Like Langston, her contact with Alain Locke had occurred earlier in the 1920s. She had met Locke during her long-lasting part-time study at Howard University, where she had become a member of the college literary club. Langston had spent time with Locke in Paris in 1924, an experience he relates in his first autobiography, The Big C. In 1927, Locke introduced both Hughes and Hurston to the lady known as Godmother, Charlotte Mason, who actually financed their activity for several years. Hurston, she also financed Locke to some extent, which is why he was able to go to Europe first class. Hurston's academic and research activity was focused on African American topics for several years following 1925, when she began her study of anthropology, but she naturally was quite aware of Haiti. By the mid-30s, she felt compelled to include Haiti in her anthropological inquiry. Support for Hurston's research came in the form of the Guggenheim Fellowship. She went to Jamaica in April of 1936 and examined folk religion there, and in September continued to Haiti, where she remained until March 1937. While in Haiti, she interrupted her research and wrote the novel Their Eyes Were Watching God. On her return to the United States in March, she succeeded in having her fellowship renewed and returned to Haiti in May and concluded her research there the following September. The account of her Caribbean research focused primarily on Haiti, and it was published in 1938 under the title Tell My Horse. Dedicated to her friend Carl Van Vechten, the title is a translation of a Haitian Creole phrase uttered by one of the Voodoo gods, and it says literally, listen to my human subject. Part 2 of Tell My Horse is entitled Politics and Personalities of Haiti. The 4 chapters present anecdotal and somewhat sensational events from recent Haitian history. Some of these seem to have been suggested by another book that was hard to ignore earlier, the book entitled Magic Island, written by William Seabrook in 1929. Her view of the American occupation was not entirely negative, but that's because the occupation was already over when she went. Part 3 is entitled Voodoo in Haiti and consists of 9 chapters in which Hurston describes a variety of experiences in Haiti, some entirely related to voodoo and its practitioners, and some more loosely connected. One of the 26 photographs in the book represents a person whom she identifies as a zombie. That gave the book a certain amount of scandal. The appendix of Tell My Horse consists of songs and of worship to voodoo gods and miscellaneous songs. The latter section includes several dance tunes done by a composer whom she met there, and one of them is actually dedicated to Zora. The final 2 personalities that we will discuss, Catherine Dunham, the dancer, and Lois Jones, the painter, each had a special relationship with Alain Locke, the mentor of the Harlem Renaissance and the editor of the New Negro. Jones became a member of the art department at Howard in 1930, and hence was a junior colleague of Locke's. Dunham's brother, somewhat older than she, had earned a PhD in philosophy at the University of Chicago and had been appointed by Locke as a fellow instructor. Consequently, Dunham was intensely conscious of Locke through her brother's association with him. Catherine Dunham was a very talented young person. Her first published piece, a brief short story entitled Come Back to Arizona, appeared in the Brownies book, the youth periodical created and edited by Du Bois and Jessie Fawcett. The year of publication was 1921, and a brief paragraph from the story is this: They soon came to a large ranch house surrounded by acre after acre of land. Behind it were several corrals. When Tom caught sight of it, he jumped up and down, crying, "Now for the bandit roundup, Edward." Catherine, the author, was 11 years old. We will chart a few events in her life before she went to Haiti. In 1928, she began her studies in ballet. In 1929, she began her studies at the University of Chicago. In 1930, she organized the Ballet Negro, a company which made its Chicago debut the next year. In 1935, she received a fellowship from the Jules Rosenwald Fund to conduct research in the Caribbean relating dance to culture. Her Caribbean visits included Jamaica, Martinique, and Trinidad, but it was her experience in Haiti which was to have an overwhelming impact. The influence of Haiti and the folk dances of the Haitian people on choreography and teaching in the dance world today is entirely due to the work of Catherine Dunham. She arrived in Haiti in early 1936. Her Haitian experience is recounted ultimately in her book entitled Ireland Possessed, which appeared in 1969. Directly based on her Haitian research was her 1936 thesis on Haitian dance. 10 years after written, it was published in Spanish in Mexico. A decade later, a French translation appeared in Paris. Finally, The Dances of Haiti, in English, was published at UCLA in 1983. But this is a considerably revised edition incorporating a long campaign of subsequent research, and it is dedicated to the Haitian scholar René Piquion. Between 1936 and 1983, the Haitian experience of Catherine Dunham has a rich history. She had organized a company on her return to Chicago for which she created a dance vocabulary based on her Haitian dance studies. This dance vocabulary, known as the Dunham technique, is now taught internationally. She had choreographed a large number of dances with Haitian subjects. She had established a residence in Haiti in a well-preserved land segment near Port-au-Prince and this was known as the Résidence Leclerc. As a result of the many triumphal tours of the Dunham Company beginning in 1943 and continuing for the next 20 years, awareness of Haiti in some measure or the other became international. The Dunham Company was hailed in Mexico, in London, and Paris. It toured South America, Australia, and New Zealand. Indeed, it was the most widely toured American company ever, being equaled in our time only by the Alvin Ailey Company, Ailey himself having been inspired by Dunham. Lois Mailou Jones had a long career as a teacher of design and an even longer career as a painter. She received her degree in design in 1927 in her native Boston. Coming to Howard after teaching 1 year in North Carolina, she remained actively teaching until 1977 and painting until her last months in 1998. Currently, a major retrospective exhibition, Lois Mailou Jones, A Life in Vibrant Color, is touring. It was recently in Washington, and next year it will be in Annapolis, so everybody can go and see it. From her early childhood, Lois was acquainted with Martha's Vineyard, where she is now buried. Boston and Washington were her major centers until 1937, when she spent a busy year in Paris. Thereafter, France became very important in her personal and professional life. In 1953, Haiti was added to her geography and culture when she married a distinguished Haitian graphic artist, Louis Vergniaud Pierre Noël. To save time, she called him Pierre, and he called her Mailou. It is said that both their families were a little disturbed, which seems strange since they were both in their 40s. Pierre Noël himself was primarily involved in designing stamps and medals, having done this for the Haitian government, the Organization of American States, and the United Nations. Hence, there was no direct artistic conflict between them. Their marriage took place in France, but thereafter they visited Haiti frequently. In 1954, the year after her marriage, Lois received a formal invitation from the Haitian government to do a series of paintings of Haitian subjects. She complied enthusiastically with that request. She probably also originated it, and a considerable body of her work after that point reflects Haiti. For many, her paintings form a significant statement about Haiti. Lois and Pierre Noël acquired and spent time at a very hospitable house in Port-au-Prince. Unfortunately, he passed in 1982, but Lois continued to Haiti, where she was appreciated, much as Catherine Dunham was, as an exemplar of Haitian culture. I will now make a few personal observations about the areas that I have sketched out. The two personages that I never saw were James Weldon Johnson and Zora Neale Hurston. I saw Du Bois once when he received an honorary degree at Morgan State here in Baltimore. I was a colleague of John Mathis at West Virginia State College in 1949-50 and saw him frequently for several decades. I met Alain Locke at his office at Howard in 1944 and was introduced by him to Lois Jones at Howard in 1953. I saw Langston Hughes for the first time in the 1950s. I had a pleasant conversation with him at the festival in Dakar in 1966, the year before he passed. I first saw Catherine Dunham on stage in 1947, beginning in 1971 in Atlanta, where she choreographed the opera Tremonisha by Scott Joplin. I saw her frequently. She was quite pleased to be, along with Pearl Primus, the dedicatee of my book, The Black Tradition in American Dance. My first visit to Haiti was in the summer of 1955, when I spent a month. My second visit was the following year when I spent 2 months. I organized the New World Festival of the Haitian diaspora there in 1979. René Piquillon, whom I had mentioned, and Lois Jones were both present and very involved in festival activities. For in the festival, I declared a Catherine Dunham Day, on which I took Romare Bearden, his wife Nanette, and the photographer Frank Stewart to call upon Dunham at her opulent residence. My last visit to Haiti was in December of 1985 to present a paper at a symposium honoring Lois Jones. This symposium had been organized by Barry Gaither of Boston. Among those attending were Margaret Burroughs, her husband, and a number of her associates. A day before leaving Haiti, I drove Lois and René Piquillon to the Dunham residence where we had lunch with Catherine. Thank you very much. We always take a few questions.
Dr. Long, in Paris, there was, Dr. Mercer Cook would give a party for the foreign students every Wednesday. And he always had Maurice Noir, who wrote Antigua en Creole. Was he Haitian then? Can you mention anything about that?
Maurice,
Noir.
that name is familiar, but I can't bring up anything about him. But you're mentioning Mercer Cook is very significant. Mercer Cook, if I had were giving a longer lecture on the subject, we would have to mention Mercer Cook because he is a major African-American scholar in French. He was chairman of the French department at Howard at several different points. In between, he was a diplomat, and he was, of course, ambassador to Senegal during the period of the festival in 1966. And one of my very pleasant recollections of being at that festival, I mentioned Langston already, was a reception that Mercer Cook had at the American Embassy for the Americans who were attending the festival. And at the festival, at the reception were Langston Hughes and Catherine Dunham and Duke Ellington and his orchestra. So that was a very, and Mercer Cook, of course, remained in contact with Haiti during much of his experience. Mercer Cook himself was the son of a very, very distinguished musician, and Will Marion Cook. And Will Marion Cook himself was the son of one of the earliest members of the Howard faculty who taught law at Howard. His father had graduated from Oberlin. Will Marion went to Oberlin, then Will Marion went to Vienna to study, and came back to the United States in the early 90s, intending to be a major violinist, and discovered they were not ready for him. Indeed, of course, America wasn't ready for any American violinists in the early 90s. And of course, it was here in America that he had contact with Dvorak in New York, and so on. And he later, shifted to jazz or to early jazz and what have you, and so on. And he continued down into the 1920s, and he was a great inspiration to Duke Ellington, which is why Duke Ellington named his son Mercer. Mercer Ellington is named after Mercer Cook. Yes?
Do you ever return to Haiti?
I just want to return to Haiti. Well, that's a very personal kind of question. I go almost anywhere on short notice, but it just happens for various reasons I had not been back to Haiti. At the present moment, I think I could wait until they get a little more restoration there. But no, but it's quite possible I will go back. I expect to travel for the next few decades, and and so on. So I have no objection, of course, to going back, and I have retained, contacts with Haiti throughout the years.
Can you
assess the Haitian participation in the '66 exhibition in Dakar?
I'm sorry, we didn't hear.
Oh, the Haitian participation in Dakar in the '66. The Haitian participation there was mainly in the form of the dance. And there was a Haitian dance company there, and a number of other Haitian artists were there in that period, and so on. And René Piquion, whom I mentioned, was one of the many Haitian scholars who was there in that period. So Haitians were there in considerable numbers. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
What's your assessment in terms of Lois Maybelle Jones's productivity in terms of her Paris experience vis-a-vis her Haitian experience in terms of her art with it?
Well, of course, her going to Paris in 1937, when she went to Paris, was an expression of the fact that many American artists and a number of African American artists thought it was absolutely important to go to Paris and participate in French culture and in French painting. And her paintings that she produced from that period, and indeed for a number of years after, reflect a great deal of what she actually saw in the museums in Paris and so on. I think that the paintings that she did in Haiti were a more direct presentation, manifestation of the people and culture of Haiti. And she went after those, I think, with a certain kind of energy which was not there in that other kind of painting and so on. So those works, I think, many people consider to be more significant than her earlier things. Yes.
This is really off the subject to a certain extent, but how do you feel about and possibly think the Haitian cultural expressions, etc., will be reflected as a result of the most recent damage through the earthquakes that have devastated?
Well, the very fact, of course, of the earthquake certainly create awareness of Haiti outside of Haiti. And I think that within Haiti itself, as people, become aware of how the extent to which, they have been heard about and so on, will hopefully orient them a little. Because Haiti has undergone a radical change, underwent a radical change between in the last decades and so on. The population, of course, increased fantastically, which is itself a complicated thing to understand, because when I first went to Haiti, it was like maybe 3 million people, and I understand now you have like 7 million people there.
Yes,
And,
about the same that for me when I was there, it was a comfortable
Yeah.
population. Yes.
and then, of course, the tremendous destruction of the natural environment there, brought about by this incredible increase in population, is an important factor, and so on. So there's no question about the fact that the earthquake has made an enormous difference in many different ways, and that I can't say that it seems clear to me that its problems have been fully addressed in any way at all, but there seemed to be some, some movement toward some improvement. But of course, it's one of those real problems, and of course, it's been dramatized for us in the last few weeks by the earthquake in Japan.
Yes.
That you can have a bad earthquake which can do a lot of damage even when you are theoretically prepared for it. Haiti, of course, they hadn't even heard of an earthquake before, whereas in Japan they have earthquakes every day, and so on. So they were, aware of it, but a really bad earthquake can just bring about enormous changes. So I think one can be optimistic about what can ultimately come out of Haiti, but it's going to be a long, long period when things are overcast and negative.
I asked that question because when I was there, it was very comfortable to move around. And the people were very helpful to me as
I was doing my research.
Mhm.
And I really, and I guess the other reason was because I really enjoyed it, the music,
Yes.
the food. So it was a very warm experience for me, and so I just wanted your take on it.
Yes, well, I think that at the moment, things are necessarily very, 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 very sad, very negative. But there's a possibility that within a few years, as long as there's not another earthquake, and as long as there's no excessive behaviors among the various people with political expectations and so on, that there may be a kind of recovery.
Are there any more contemporary authors and writers that are Haitian that we may be, say, more interested in knowing about? I mean, you talked about the Haitian influence, and the more I heard you talk about it, the more I realized that the only thing we ever hear about Haiti is tragedy. It is, when you said Haitian scholar, I said, I've never heard that in the media.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, Haiti has always, had a group of scholars, and that would be true today,
Yes,
recently.
yes.
And then, of course, we have naturally local, what is new in this country to a considerable extent, of course, is the Haitian population in the United States at present. This is a situation which simply did not exist, say, 50 or 60 years ago. But beginning in the 60s and 70s, we began to get a considerable Haitian population both in New York City and in Miami, among other places. And in that, among those people, we have, scholars, some of whom remain in contact with Haiti, some of whom don't to a considerable extent. But the Haitian presence in the United States is quite important at present.
Is Edward Datica Haitian?
Hmm?
Is Edward Datica Haitian?
Yes. She lives in Miami. Yes, she came here as a very young writer, and she's been very, very involved in Haiti and in the things that have happened there because she was born there, and her awareness of what's going on is very important. So, and she would be the most important person from Haiti in the field of literature, Dandika. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, earlier you quoted that W.E.B. Du Bois recognized the problem of the color line and he reintroduced it in 1924. Do you think that's just as relevant now in the 21st century, problem of the color line?
Yes, I don't see that. I think that the changes are much less than the problem. It's obviously the situation is not exactly the same now as it was in 1924, but there are substantial problems and questions both in the United States and outside of the United States, and so on. You have the problem of the color line in some places now where it didn't exist, say in 1924. You can go to France now where it exists to some extent, and other places. And then unfortunately it is frequently and continues to exist in places, which are entirely outside of that Western thing. You have the problem of color line in India. And you certainly have it in Mexico. So I don't even want to get into the problem of the color line, because that's all. But of course, what Du Bois was concerned about specifically, even though he was aware of it in other places, was the situation in the United States. And he was really talking about it from that point of view. And what he is saying, of course, in that essay is that he was looking at the problem of the color line in 1899 largely from the American perspective. And then in 1924, he was really looking at it from a more international perspective. But yes, it exists.
You mentioned Arna Bontemps. What is your ranking regarding Bontemps in terms of his contribution to literature within the context of those who contributed to literature from the African diaspora?
Well, he was a very important figure. We remember he was very closely connected throughout his life with Langston Hughes. He simply didn't do any of the traveling and so on that Langston did, but they remained in very close contact. And they collaborated a great deal. They did, 2 or 3 anthologies together. Their collaboration begins with the book that I mentioned, Pupo and Fifina. But they remained in very close touch throughout their lives. And Bontemps did a great deal in support of a large number of artists. I can even give you a personal anecdote about Bontemps. I have a poem which appears in an anthology which Bontemps did, about 30 years ago, something like that. And in the note about me in it, he says, and he has a volume of poems coming out soon. I didn't have any volume of poems coming out soon. But by his statement that I had to have one coming out. So I eventually brought out a volume of poems. And he did that for a tremendous number of people. He was a very busy and productive person. And I was quite deliberate on his part. And so he said it would make him. So he's responsible for my bringing out a volume of poems.
Now, during those times when you were talking about Langston Hughes and Zora Neale
Can you
Hurston.
speak up a little bit?
I said during the time that you mentioned Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, what was the nature of their disagreement, if there was any?
Well, first, I'll give you some.
Would you repeat the question?
Yes, the nature of the disagreement between Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, who were very, very friendly in the late 20s, and indeed had a patron in common, and so on. And they eventually fell out over they eventually had a disagreement about a work that they started to collaborate. Mulebone, they were going to do a play together. And at a later point, at some point, there was some disagreement as to who had really done the play and what have you. And Langston gives us a long account of it in his autobiography. So we have an account by him. Zora barely mentions his name in her autobiography. However, he is mentioned in a number of letters that she wrote, and her letters have now been published as a few years ago, So there's tremendous documentation in that respect. Then you have documentation by the biographers. Zora's biographers give you their account of it, and Langston's biographer, Rampersad, gives an account of it. So there's a lot of information about it. I will say that after you read it all, you still don't know. But reading about it is enjoyable.
Any other questions? Then I would like to invite you to a small reception and to please join me in thanking Dr. Long.
Well, thank you.